Yes, Spurs fans, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. This is going to be your other weekly panel show, joined by the Irish contingent here. We have Philip Brady, as always, as our massive super sub for this. Jack, of course, the other Jack, is gone for this week, but we do have Colin, who finally we get to chat about a win. We get to chat about some decent performances. But of course, there is still this looming, practically what I've described it as a cup final, basically, on Sunday, of course, against Nottingham Forest. We're going into this game, I think, slightly more optimistic, maybe more confident than we would have been, let's say, a week ago, where we were probably almost dreading this game against Forest. Now I think Spurs fans can at least try to convince themselves or try to maybe lie to themselves that maybe we're going into this one almost more confident than who knows, maybe even Forest fans are. But I'll try to my best to control the happy clapping, reading into things too much, taking crumbs and turning it into a 4-star, 5-star Michelin star meal. And we're going to ask, of course, how Colin and Philip have felt about the last two performances and just Igor Tudor general, certain players that have absolutely starred and have almost turned a leaf or have been reborn, it seems like, under Igor Tudor. Is that down to him and just being able to get a tune out of them? Is that just them just all of a sudden knuckling down? Plenty of questions around the squad, plenty of questions around this Sunday. So please, everybody, like I've said before, clear your weekends if you can. This game on Sunday is going to be absolutely huge, and we'd love to have you there with us. Smash the like button as you're coming into the show. Would really appreciate it. Thanks to all the listeners that have joined us nice and early, like K32 here saying hello, Dave and Jack and everyone. Very encouraging performance last night. I thought Archie Gray was exceptional. Players are showing pride and fight. Things are starting to look up. I mean, that's what we've been asking for, just simply that pride and also that grit that has been missing for so long now. But it's good to see that we've been able to see it on 2 occasions in a row now. K32. Scott Spurs in the house as well. The one and only Simon Coley as well. Evening, everyone. Hope you are well. And then Jay Max in the business. Good to see you, Jay. Colin, good to have you back, sir. I mean, do you think Spurs have turned a new leaf under Igor Tudor, or is it way too soon to say with probably the more important match on Sunday still to play?
Well, I'm really optimistic. Well, I won't say really optimistic, but it does feel like a new leaf has turned over. I suppose it has to be understood in the context of a European performance for which we seem to be just flawless and have the look of the gods and the wind behind our backs. But aside from good European form, it does look like we can actually string a couple of passes together. The team looks cohesive. It was I think it was Vicario that said something about fitness, which was a bizarre one to say this deep into the season. But perhaps we can be optimistic. There were some green shoots because it really felt like a decent, cohesive, energetic performance against reasonably good opposition. I know they won't have been terribly motivated to try and smash us out of the park because they had such an advantage from the first leg. But it still is Atleti. They still want to win. They've still got some very sharp players. So in that context, it's green shoots. There's a little bit of optimism, but the real test is Sunday when you get back to the physicality and pace and power of the Premier League.
Yeah. I mean, Philip, am I going to be reading too much into things to say that maybe we've already turned a new leaf, or are you waiting till Sunday to make those bold conjectures?
If you put it into a seasonal term, we were in the autumn recently with the leaves falling off the trees, completely falling off the trees.
There was no leaf.
Two green shoots coming up. The Liverpool started it last night, continued it. Like we're not out of the woods yet, but I mean, I think the last two performances, one was good, and last night's was very good. And I think, as Colin said there, what Vicario mentioned with the fitness, you wouldn't think a team needed to be fitness training this time of the season, but that team was not fit when Thomas Frank left. And it showed the first few games. Last night and against Liverpool, it showed at least the pressing is back, the fitness is back, the energy is back, and it seems to be the desire to actually win a game for the club is back as well, which was missing for a while there. So, yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is if we beat Forest on Sunday, I think we're not clear, but we must be the least of the favourites to go down of the 3 or 4 clubs that are involved there.
In order to get out of the woods, we'll have to knock down a Forest this Sunday, but also you would say that, what was Thomas Frank even working on, Philip, to mention that the fitness hasn't been there. I was joking to Colin. We actually, I believe Dave can probably confirm me on this one, but I believe we saw at one point 3 forward passes in a row through midfield, completed at certain stages. I mean, it almost makes you really wonder what the hell Thomas Frank was actually doing for such a long time.
I honestly don't know, but it's thankfully it's been brought to an end now. And like poor old Igor, he literally came in to between a rock and a hard place there. And I mean, I think after 3, now I'd be the first to admit, after 3 or 4 of those games, if he'd have been sacked, I would not have shed any tears.
No,
I think you've got to give the guy credit. Whatever he's doing is starting to work, and if he can continue the upward progress over the next few matches, then I think we are going to become a team that's not an easy touch. I think we've gone from the lads, it's Tottenham, Alex Ferguson scenario, to the Forest manager will be saying on Sunday, lads, be very careful out there. This team is on the up, and let's hope he's right.
And what is it we think that Igor Tudor has brought to this team? That we're seeing these sort of improved performances.
Do you want me to take that one?
Irish, yeah, you can kick it off.
Well, I'll kick it off. Oh my God, all the puns. They write themselves today. Forest puns, kicking off puns. Well, clearly it looks to me like fitness. I suppose you wonder why the heads were always hanging, and you wonder why our pressing wasn't good, and you wonder why, because you assume as a Premier League outfit, and particularly under somebody as apparently tuned in as Thomas Frank and as professional as Thomas Frank, you assume the boys are absolutely up for it in terms of fitness. But having played, well, not at any level at all, but like when you have missed your little 5-a-side session for a couple of weeks and you get back, your mentality drops just simply because your physicality isn't there. You can't keep up with the young fellas. You're missing your timing, your tackles, you're missing your shots, and then the head does start to drop. So mind and body are pretty much need to be as one. So if they've got fitter, then the mind is fresher, and therefore the passes start to hit, the forward runs start to make more sense. You're finding your teammates, everything feels good. The pressing works because everybody can press at the same time. So it just felt cohesive rather than disjointed last night. And so if he's managed to turn it around just from the point of view of having the boys a little bit, for the team a little bit fitter, as well as, in my opinion, I think he's starting to work out who fits in what hole. So it's a little bit more straightforward. It's not particularly overly complicated for them to understand. It's pretty simple. There was a 4-4-2. Everybody was in the position you'd probably expect to see them in, maybe with the exception of Xavi, who I personally prefer in the middle, but had a great game. If he's got them fitter and got them playing in the right positions, then that's really all it takes, because I don't think any of us really sat here, injuries aside, and thought that our squad, when you talk about quality, and I know we're usually talking about quality, about trying to be a top 6, trying to break into the top 4 squad, but you cannot say that we, even with our 13 players out, have had a squad that is poor enough to be relegated. I don't think it is. I think the quality is there. Even our second string is, easily mid-table. The problem we've always had is that our first string is not much better. But if he's got them fit and firing, and then just everything starts to click. So for me, that's been it. And actually, just if I can, just to pull back on what I said last week, where I was like, get him out the door, get him out the door, get him out the door. It probably has been very, very difficult for him, because he hasn't really got many game changers. With that level of injury, there just isn't that much choice off the bench, as we've seen. We've been filling it up with squad player or youth team players. So he doesn't really have any impact players to come on and change the game in a meaningful way. Not like when we were playing against Liverpool and you're nearly rolling your eyes looking at Ekitike and Salah warming up. We're not in that league, forgive the pun again, at the moment. So I just think he's done a great job in just getting a tune out of the guys that are left. And hopefully with more players coming back, even if the Forest result doesn't go our way, we're still in with a fighting chance. But I appreciate it's a massive game no matter.
And Philip, I mean, is it Tudor's revelation that he's somehow been able to regenerate this form, or is it just the players just finally deciding to knuckle down at this stage of the season, knowing the threat of relegation and the pressure that's on them? I mean, what do you put it down to, the fact that they have all of a sudden started to play a lot better?
I'd say it's a bit of both, actually. I think players, like I know we talk about players being mercenaries and only in it for the money and no loyalty to one particular club for too long. But I think these guys, they probably had a meeting amongst themselves. Come on, lads, we're too good to go down. We can't allow this to happen. We've got to knuckle down. Okay, the injuries have been horrendous. But another thing that I liked last night was to see the likes of Lucas Bergvall coming back on. He has been a huge miss for us. Udogie is back. That's another big miss. And the fact that we're getting the players back, I think we could have more players. We could have 2 or 3 more back before we've got a 3-week break now between Forest and the next game. So that should give them a chance to bring us back, nearly get the squad back to maybe 80% strength, which would be brilliant. But I think that Tudor, I would have been all out the door last week before Liverpool, no problem. But as I said before we started there, I think the guy's been unlucky. If you look at the things that have happened to him since in his first 4 games, the Arsenal game, the goal disallowed for the merest of pushes. The following game, the same thing with Fulham and the goals given. Then he's got the disaster of the pitch in Madrid, and then Van der Ven getting sent off for something that Virgil van Dijk does weekly and gets away with it. So you can't legislate for stuff like that. So maybe the bad luck is now behind them. They've now knuckled down. The players are coming back. We're 25 games unbeaten at home in Europe. That was something they were trying to hang on to last night, and they did very, very well. So I'm thinking that the worst of this season is now over for us. Win on Sunday against Forest. I think we can start to breathe a little bit easier. We're not out of the woods. Again, this Forest analogy. So there's so many trees coming in tonight's performance. I don't know. But anyway, we beat Forest, and we've got it. We'll be seeing the wood for the trees to keep it going.
It is probably a bit of both. And I do agree with you that, and we were saying that at the back end, that it's hard to always pin it down, a whole game, a whole 90 minutes on one massive blunder. But you could make the case that some of these huge errors that we've seen from the players, especially when you're already in such poor form, the confidence is so low that it can play a huge factor. And already with a new manager having to deal with trying to figure out the players and whatnot, the mistakes that Van de Ven, Kinski, the lack of decisions, from the referees when it's the Fulham game or even the Arsenal game as well, doesn't help the situation. And because, David and I, we do try to avoid to just blame it all on one instant or one moment, but sometimes that one instant might actually play a massive part in how the game ends up playing out, or the script, if you will. Dave, is it Igor Tudor, the magician, Igor the Great, that's just figured everything out? Is it the players knuckling it down? What do you put it down to? Just the 2 recent performances just being, I'll be honest, light years better than what we saw for a couple of months.
To be honest with you, I'll give Tudor most of the credit, actually, to be brutally honest with you. I think, he's come in here with a clear plan. First of all, he mentioned about getting them fitter. Reason why he needed them fitter was that so he could go and do man-for-man press like most of the other teams have employed in the Premier League this year, bar us, But not only that, he's also spoke about stop being a victim. You know what I mean? And I think we've all got sucked into that, blaming referees and other circumstances and stuff, which at the end of the day, look, all do play a part in the outcome of games and stuff like that. But the reality is a lot of the effort the players were given was just not good enough, and I think a lot of us were looking to blame elsewhere and stuff. And I think he's come in and said, look, stop being a victim and start taking circumstances of your own. You start being in charge of your own sort of circumstances. And I think, that he's breathed that into the club. I also think it's an understanding. He has an understanding of this sort of level. He's played at this level. He's played at UV. He's played with top players with mentalities and stuff like that. And, Frank didn't have that. And that was one of my big concerns with him coming in here. And I think, recently, the last 2 managers we've had, they've both protected the players. This guy has shown he will not protect them. He has put them out on blast. He has left them hung out to dry. And when he's done that, not only that, he's followed through. He hasn't been afraid to take out Vicario and bring in Kinski. He hasn't afraid to bring in Olasesi from the academy to sort of, book up a few ideas. He hasn't been afraid to drop Xavi Simons or Gallagher to the bench, some of the highest earners at this football club. And he sort of followed through. And he's like, guys, I'm not here to protect you. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here because I'm a specialist at this situation. You either follow me or you don't. And if you don't, I'm not protecting you in the press like other managers have done. And he's also brought discipline into the football club now. Under Thomas Frank, we hear about all this ill discipline. Granted, but players are like school children. they're going to test rules. It's up to you as a manager, to instill that. That's why in schools you have headmasters and stuff like that, because they instill all that sort of stuff. And I think that's where Thomas Frank went wrong. He let them walk all over him. And to a degree, so did Ange Postecoglou. Tudor is not letting him do that. Okay, no problem. Sit on the bench, or I won't include you in the match day squad, and you can answer the questions that come your way, because I'm not protecting you. And by doing that, he's basically challenged them, because let's be brutally honest, a lot of these are top players. Van de Ven, Romero, despite what people think of Colin Moani, he's played at top clubs, recently called back into the French squad and stuff like that. And he's been in and around that situation in his playing days, so he fully understands, in order to get the best out of them, what you need to do. And he's challenged them, and all of a sudden, now they're starting to come back with the answers. And I think he deserves a lot of credit with the way he's gone about the job. Despite everyone telling him he's been wrong, and I think Philip was absolutely spot on. Looking back on it, I think he has been a bit unlucky. If that goal is allowed in the North London derby, it's a different game altogether, that second goal. If that first goal doesn't happen against Fulham, it's a different game altogether. The sending off against Palace, if that doesn't happen, it's a different game altogether. So I think he has been a bit unlucky in that regard, but he is stuck to his beliefs. He is stuck to his mentality the whole way through. Everyone's come in and told him, no, you're wrong. You're a dictator. These players need to be cuddled and kissed and an arm around them. Tell them how great they look and stuff like that. And he's just refused to do it. And by not doing it, he's actually getting a reaction out of them, because they're looking at him going, well, guys, we have nowhere to hide anymore. We have nowhere to hide under this guy. He's not going to come out there and protect us in press conferences like other managers have done. It's on us now. He is challenging us. We're the ones that are going to directly, be held responsible for this. And they don't, obviously, it seems like they don't want to be. And now they're actually trying to leg. So I think, the way he's approached it, despite many people telling him he's wrong, I think he's been absolutely spot on.
No, absolutely. I think he's avoided the, what would you call it, squad politics that maybe many managers fall into, where they know maybe they have to play a certain player because he's been brought in for massive money, or he's a fan favorite, someone that maybe was a captain before under a previous manager, whatever it might be. Sometimes a manager comes in, they'd have to acknowledge not to disrupt or end up, breaking any sort of relationships with some of the players in their squad for whatever reason. But Igor knows that he's here for a very temporary period, and it's all just about winning games. He doesn't need to make friends. He most part probably won't even chat to any of these players after his job might be done at the end of this season. Might not even see them ever again, knowing that. So it is kind of maybe simpler for him that way, where maybe other managers, they do have to navigate that minefield, if you will, where he doesn't. He's just taking a bulldozer through it.
Yeah.
But I also think he's been brave. He hasn't been afraid to try things. He hasn't just stuck out the same 11, even though it hasn't been working like Frank used to do, or the same formation. He's trying things. He's played 4-4-2. He's played 3-4-3 and stuff like that. He's dropped some of the bigger earners or some of the players that don't run as much as others and stuff. He's brought in young Callum Olasesi, which again, let's be brutally honest, he provided great energy off the bench against Liverpool and helped re-energize the team for the rest of the game. And also against Atletico Madrid, he came on and had some good moments. He had that lovely layoff for the penalty for Xavi Simons and stuff like that. So he's not afraid to try things. He's not just going to sit there and accept what people are giving him, like other managers have done. He will try things until he gets the reaction he wants. Yeah. And he hasn't also come in here and gone, guys, this is what I'm doing as a manager. He's come in, looked at as what we've had. He's given us principles, but he's also working with what we've got. You know what I mean? Like Ange came in, regardless of what we have, we play this way. Frank, same thing. Regardless of what we have, we play this way. Whereas this guy's come in and going, right, this is what we have. This is what we're going to try and do, but I'll work with you along the way, And I think that helps out massively.
Just want to take some good... Yeah, go ahead, Philip.
This is a job audition for his next position as well, because if he makes an absolute pig's ear of Tottenham, he'll find it difficult to get a big club again. So if he could succeed at Tottenham, which hopefully he will, then he's in it for his own future as well.
100%.
As well as our own future. So good luck to him.
I mean, the rewards and the potential that he could have if he were to save Spurs from this situation, his stock certainly would go pretty high, at least especially with Premier League clubs. Scott Spur saying, death before rebirth, lads. Comrade Igor, that's a great name, is whipping out boys into shape and showing them how real men are starting to act. Perhaps I'm starved of enjoyment, but it's nice to see. Great summary from Scott there.
Also, one thing I wanted to add, I love the way he treats some of the journalists like a bag of shit when they're in front of him as well. I absolutely love it, because some of the ridiculous questions Frank used to get, and they'd sit there and almost appease them trying to answer and stuff. This guy is just looking at them and makes them look that small and makes them look like a dummy. You can only imagine, you know, what that's like behind cameras when the cameras aren't on there, you know, if he's grilling lads and stuff like that. You can only imagine. But I absolutely love it. In a way, he sort of fights for the club. I love the way he came out after the Fulham game and questioned the goal being given when other managers have just shut up and accepted it. You know, he's not afraid to come out and question things and stick up for us in the press conference. Like even after the Liverpool game, you know, the guy's coming in asking about his future and stupid questions. And he's sort of sitting there going, well, hang on, this team has been bereft of confidence. Everyone has slated it and berated it. They've actually put on a good performance today. We speak about that maybe. You know what I mean? He just makes them look so dumb and stupid, and I love it.
Even too, like he's sometimes said, like, you've asked me that question about 5-6 times now. Like, can we please just move on from this? You know, he would say things like that too in press conferences, which I appreciate. But yeah, Colin, I think you agree.
Oh, yes, sorry, no, I was waving at Harmless Potato saying hello to everybody, like Dave does. I don't have the same natural thumbs up that Dave has. He's well practiced at this.
Permanent. This is permanent now. I walk around like this now.
No, what I was going to say was, and this could be a very Spurs tinted glasses comment, but it is my opinion that we're still treated like a bit of a banter club by the English media, which does frustrate me greatly. So if you take just in the wider context, when Frank was running us into the ground, but because he was a bit of a media darling, and he would, you know, talk endlessly and give these guys what they want, which is tons and tons of column inches or text for web pages, there wasn't really that much talk until right at the very end, in my opinion, or pressure to get Frank out, right? Whereas if you then take it now, where Tudor's come in, and like you say, he's looking these guys dead in the eye and saying, no comment.
It's
right, and just like giving them the stink eye. There has been nothing but radio shows, Sky Sports coverage, you know, of Harry's at Cheltenham, he's going to take over. Who else could take over? So it's all about the man is in the position, and there's absolutely zero respect shown to the man. No, I'd be guilty of that as well, I think, towards before the Liverpool performance. But like zero respect, and nothing but Harry this and Glenn Hoddle that and whatever else. Like the amount of coverage that they got, as well as stories that, whether you believe it or not, but let's take it at face value, there are stories there about players being discontented. They don't care anymore. They're going to go to another club. Doesn't matter if we get relegated. And Mickey van de Ven, again, take it at face value, comes out and says, I don't know where these guys get that. We're all here and we're doing our job as best we can. So, and I think I said that on a previous episode where I felt that, you know, a paper doesn't refuse ink. These guys just write whatever the hell they want sometimes, not all the time. And Mickey's come out and pretty much said the same thing. I don't know where they're getting these stories from. Maybe some journalist somewhere has had a throwaway comment from a player, but it's not as if they've sat down and had 5 or 6 players say it to them. So I just, even if they get a hint of something awry, because it's Spurs, because we're a banter club, let's write a story and put it out there. So I do feel contextually, when our manager is anti-press, they'll come out and they'll say, who's the next one that's going to come into Spurs? I don't think they do that as readily in other clubs, or at least it certainly doesn't feel like that. But again, could be Spurs tinted glasses.
I think he's taken in the way he treats the press. When he gets a question that he doesn't like or thinks is unfair, he does a Donald Trump on it. He throws it back at them. What are you asking me that for? Or you're a horrible person or something like that.
Piggy.
It's probably the right way to deal with them, actually, because, as you rightly said, other press guys come in there and the manager will just nod and agree with them. But he's not made of the same stuff. He is going to fight his corner and disagree if he feels he has to.
Yeah.
But again, he can be like that with both the squad and the press because he knows his days are numbered already. Yeah. You get a lot of freedom as a manager because you're not thinking long term. You're just thinking about right here, right now, what do I need to do? So that gives you massive freedom, massive freedom.
Just want to say hello to some people. Q7's in the house. You're never bad luck, Q7. I mean, we're past the time of being in any way skeptical or superstitious. It's I think we're well past that point. Good to have you with us. As always, K32 saying Archie is a leader and a future captain of Spurs. A lot of people have come up with that sort of statement as well after the recent performances. Tartan Spurs, a man up in Scotland. Always good to see you. Thank you for the kind compliment about last night. J Max saying yesterday just shows that if you go out with an intent to attack these teams, these players can actually look half decent. I mean, that's what we were saying for a while now under Thomas Frank, J-Mac. Completely agree. Wayne Bonner, always good to see you. Hope you're all well. Gray is stepping up, continuously getting better with every game. Tudor seems to be bringing the best out of him. Well, we'll be moving on to that in just a second here, Wayno. So hopefully you do enjoy that conversation. Iceman Ricky's in the house as well. Faz Radfard too. Really appreciate your kind support. Gary Beck saying the biggest thing Igor has done is to speak to the squad as adults that they are. Frank was truly like a substitute teacher, not even trying to know who he was. Yeah, didn't bother to learn. Students, it seemed like. Dropkick your teacher, renewing the membership. Thank you so much, Artist T. Really do appreciate it. And by the way, I did put up a post for a members question at the end of the show if you haven't already put that up there. Philip, I mean, what can you say is that maybe a few Spurs players have started to pick up form recently, right? Archie Gray, Pape Matar, Matisse Tell, and dare I say even maybe Randall Colomwani, if I want to stretch it that far. What have you made of their performance, and do you think they can carry us to survival with the way that they're playing right now, some of these guys?
If they keep playing like they did last night and against Liverpool, yes, certainly. I begin to think, though, that maybe some of these players had become disillusioned under Thomas Frank. Like you hear rumours, I don't know if they're substantiated or not, of late coming timekeeping issues. Then you had the situation with the laughing gas with Basuma. Things like that, you know, that gives a bad impression of discipline in the club. And maybe the Frank wasn't talking to the players the way he should have been and putting his arm around them and telling them how great they were. It seems to me that these guys have now reacted to the new manager. Whatever he's doing, they like what they see, and they've reacted to it. Because for so many games there, a lot of those players were sleepwalking.
Yeah.
They were on the pitch, but that was about it. They were not participating as they should have done. And that seems to have disappeared now. And as Dave says, the way he'll switch the team around, there's nobody too big enough to be dropped. You know, like last night I saw calls for don't bother playing Romero and Van der Ven. Now, when would you have heard that before? They always be the first two names on the hymn sheet or the team sheet, you know. So I think like he looks to me to be a disciplinarian. I'll tell you one thing: if I was a school, I wouldn't fancy having him as a teacher because he's got that look about him that he's not going to take any shit from anybody, you know.
This is the thing. I think in order to succeed at the top, what top clubs don't have discipline? Like, you know, everyone just goes, they have the best players, but Man City have discipline within the club. Real Madrid have discipline within the club. You never hear any of this shit getting out. You know, and Tudor was at Juve, they would have had discipline, you know, in and around that football club. And that's what it takes to succeed and be at the best and win and stuff like that. And he knows that, you know?
Yeah. Why did he run down the tunnel at the end last night? I haven't got the answer to that. Did he shake hands with Simeone?
No, he walked down the tunnel.
Famously or infamously with Simeone never shakes hands with the opposition manager. He also is one that tends to storm down the tunnel. I also did see.
He nearly didn't shake hands with the Liverpool manager on the weekend.
Yeah,
he got the wrong boy. He got the wrong man.
Yeah,
that was very funny.
But yeah, maybe he was almost, if anything, the fact that he beat Simeone, he also maybe wanted to beat Simeone down the tunnel because it seems like that is one of those things. Simeone also loves to storm down the tunnel straight away. But I think Igor Tudor also at one point was kind of exchanging some words in maybe not a kind manner between the two of them. So I just wonder if that was just him just kind of removing himself.
After the legal equalizer for complaining about foul on Xavi.
The only thing he could have done, maybe Tudor, is maybe I don't want to rehash this with Soren again, but maybe he could have, thanked some of his players on the pitch. But he can do that in the dressing room. It doesn't need to be for the cameras or for anybody on the pitch. He could have maybe thanked the home fans, but I mean, at the end of the day, we got knocked out of the Champions League. So he did a good job. It was a good performance, but technically the comeback didn't end up happening. So maybe he just felt best to just remove himself, as quickly as possible and let maybe the players receive the plaudits instead of him. But maybe that's just me looking at it in the most positive light possible. I mean, to you, Colin, the 20-year-old midfielder, Archie Gray, is being hailed for his coming-of-age performance against Atletico. Tudor described him as the best one for the midfield and that he and Pape Matar dominated that middle of the pitch on the day. Why have they turned a new corner? Is it by circumstance? Do you think that they've just started to play well considering the pressure that's on them? Is it down to anything Igor Tudor has done? Something else maybe?
We'll separate it into the two separate players. I'll go with Sarr first because he's my least favorite.
Okay,
but I think he just strikes me as a bit of potentially a bit of a moody player when he was playing under Frank. So I felt if he was feeling loved and the centre of attention, he would play well. And the times that he got dropped, I thought his performances fell away. So I'm kind of not surprised if Tudor is a fan and he's getting game time, that his form is improving. Although I still don't think he's quite at the level he has been at before. But it was good to see him. Excuse me. It was good to see him getting somewhere back to his best, because he is certainly like a Frank Lampard, box to box midfielder. If he's not in the same caliber yet, but he could potentially get there. Archie Gray, I think we've all known, is going to be and is class. He just he's so athletic. The way he moves is just so pleasing in the eye. He's never without an answer to any challenge on the pitch. So now we're finally playing him. And I've mentioned before how I feel we failed him and other youthful players by playing them constantly out of position, because we've had gaps in the squad to fill. And then, somebody like him who's so talented, gets kind of picked on because he's a jack of all trades and is good enough to play in any position across the pitch. Kind of unfairly leaves him singled out as this, utility player. So I've been so pleased to see him playing in midfield where he's flourished, absolutely flourished. And again, having said that, it's against a European competition midfield that we've seen his best performance. So let's wait until he's getting his studs raked down the back of his calf by a returning Chris Woods or something for Nottingham Forest, and then we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I'm so encouraged because, when we signed him, I already, like I've mentioned before, my dad is a Leeds fan, so I knew about Archie Gray and knew a fair bit and watched him as often as I could when I was watching Leeds. So I was delighted we'd signed him, but then I was just so horrified at the way we've been using him. So to see him getting a performance like that under his belt, it'll do him and us the world of good. So I'm very, very pleased for the two of them.
Is he good enough to carry us to survival, do you think, Colin? Like, can we rely on just a 20-year-old to potentially be the savior for this season, or do we need more than that?
I think going forward, yes. I think he links up midfield and the front pretty well, but I'm still a bit horrified at the amount of goals we tend to let in. Now I know obviously the one against Liverpool was a bit of a freak, and it was Vicario that let us down when he really should have done better. But I suppose no is probably the answer there. He will need somebody a little bit like a Paulinho alongside him, because certainly Gray has the energy to track back and get forward, but I just think we'll need somebody a little bit meaner in order to deal with what we've got coming up against us, because we're gonna be like Nottingham Forest are going to be fighting for their lives as well. Leeds will be fighting for their lives. That's at the end of the season. Nearly every team has got something to play for, and as we know, there are no easy games in the Premier League. So yeah, unfortunately my answer to that one is probably no, unless he's got someone a little bit more steel alongside him, in my view.
I actually feel a little bit differently than Colin on Sarr and Gray, to be honest with you. I think when it comes to Pape Matar, he started the season off on fire. I think people forget that. Pre-season he was our best player, and for I think the first 6, 7, 8 games of the season, our best player was at the heart of nearly every goal we scored to a certain point. And then he was taken out of the lineup for no reason whatsoever. Frank just lost trust in him and stopped playing him. I'm not being funny, but if I'm Sarr, and I said this at the time, he's lost Pape Matar this season. Sarr is not going to want to, Sarr has no right to, or he's not going to want to go out there and put his all in for the guy again when he's took him out, when the guy is in the form of his life, and it was something that Frank continued to do. When Paulinho was playing well, he dropped him for 5, 6 games for no reason, and he done the same with a couple of other players. For whatever reason, Frank kept on dropping the best players or the best performance. Same as Matisse style. Start, score, dropped. It was absolutely insanity what Thomas Frank was doing. It was something that I highlighted. But I think what you're seeing with Pape Matar is a manager that's shown a bit of faith and belief in him again. And if you do that, you're going to get absolutely everything out of this kid. And I think he's getting close back to where he was at the start of the season. I think with Archie Gray, before this guy arrived, people were telling me how brilliant this guy was. But I didn't really think he had any major impacts on game. Like, don't get me wrong, he wasn't out of place. He wasn't costly like Radu Dragosin has been maybe, or Luka Shaky as a player like that. But I was waiting for him to really impact games. He was just sort of a passenger sometimes. But I always made the case for him last season. The sign for me of a good player is someone that can be played out of position and still be competent and not make mistakes. That young lad played centre-back better than what Radu Dragosin did last year. He's also played full-back better than what Jed Spence has done for most of his time here as well. And I think that is a solid player for me. I think it shows he got good football intelligence, really understands the game, and is technically good, because we've seen other players, when Emerson Royale and all were out injured before, we end up playing Skip and other players at left back. They couldn't cope. They were absolutely ran ragged and stuff. I actually think, that there was a player in there, but I was waiting for him to really impact games. And I think what we're seeing now lately, he assisted a goal against Fulham. I think he assisted the goal against Arsenal. He played really well in the game against Liverpool. He was absolutely phenomenal last night. And I think what you're seeing now is a player with a lot of games under his belt at this level for his age. And now he's starting to impact games. Now he's starting to really break out and have that impact on games. He's driving Tottenham Hotspur forward. And I think you're seeing a player starting to come of age now. What I will say is, let's not get carried away. He's not the perfect player. I'd argue their second, one of their goals last night, he should have pulled that attack down in midfield. I was screaming at him to do it. And I think that's something Paulinho would have done. And I still think there's little bits for him to learn in that regard. But I think overall, why we're seeing more from our centre midfielders, I think it's clear that Tudor has picked the two most energetic with the most legs that can do box-to-box rolls, get up and back. And I think also he's encouraging them to play on the ball. He wants them to get on the ball. He wants them to feed it forward and between the lines. Thomas Frank, all he wanted his midfielders to do, and it was the same at Brentford, get the ball, move it left, move it right, and let's go down the flanks. He didn't want anything adventurous from them. So much so earlier on the season, fans are going, our players can't do this. Sarr's doing it, Gray's doing it. They just have to be allowed to do it. They have to be instructed to do it. And I think that's why we're seeing much better from these guys in midfield.
Anything to add on Archie Gray or Pape Matar there, Philip?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll go back to last season, right? Who was our player of the year last season? 19-year-old Lucas Bergvall, who looks like he could be the player of the season this season. 20-year-old Archie Gray. Like it's a coming of age for these guys. I mean, they've come in, and that's how how you progress in this game. It's all right winning matches, winning every game, but you have to lose a few, take the hard knocks, and come back fighting. And that's what Archie Gray has done. That's what Pape Sarr has done. Now, Pape Sarr had a terrible news during the week where he's lost his African Nations Cup winner's medal because Morocco have been awarded the final. 2 months after he won a medal, he has to give it back. That's not easy for a player. But, he'll get over that. He's a good player. And as regards Archie Gray, I mean, I have a friend who's a very big Leeds fan, and he was absolutely gutted when Archie Gray left to come to us. He says, you're getting the player there. And now we are beginning to see what a player. What a player.
Well, the only thing I can add to all the great things you guys put out there on Gray is that I would never have faulted him, even when he was playing poor at times, whether it was early stages of this season or even under Ange Postecoglou. You would never fault him for the lack of effort. You would never fault him for putting his head down and kind of just being moody, be like maybe what Colin said that maybe Sarr at one point did this season. It seems like even when he's playing poor, he's always still run hard. He's always still just tried to show for the ball or whatever it's been. And I think he is a guy that we can say that, maybe during difficult spells like this, when form isn't good, when confidence is low, he's not a guy to down tools or anything like that. Even if he isn't having the best of games, even if he is making mistakes, he is one of those that will still try his hardest. And it's impressive because at such a young age, you would think that a kid could become influenced by the rest of the squad, the senior members, maybe being a bit toxic and their sort of attitude. Like, he hasn't really let that affect him. And also, Dave, maybe just to add, he doesn't have his buddies or anything like that, Brennan Johnson or James Madison around him, to put an arm around his shoulder. He seems to have just done his business quietly, and now he's getting the recognition for it.
Well, what I would say is I think he's severely impacting a lot more games now. Brennan Johnson has gone. I think Brennan Johnson was a bit of a child behind the scenes. When you look at the Madison footage that came out a lot of the time, he's often joking around, pulling faces and stuff, while everyone else is on mats doing their work. Johnson is walking around being a clown, and Archie Gray was very fond of him. They would travel together and everything else. And I think since Johnson's gone, I actually think you are seeing that Archie Gray grow up a little bit. Absolutely spot on in that regard. I don't know where my camera's gone, but I'm still here. I'll fix it now.
You turned into Eric Dyer.
He's got missing in midfield.
while I was listening to everyone speak, I think one thing that I was sort of thinking about is when you look at Bergvall, Sarr, and Gray, they're three young midfielders who have a lot of experience in Premier League football and European football, moving forward. And it's very rare you see young players of their age with that much experience behind them.
True.
And they all have shown the ability to be able to impact games at certain times. The older they get, if they can start becoming more impactful in them games, they start impacting games week in, week out. We have three serious midfielders with big futures ahead of them. This summer, you have to get the right experience in and around them. That's absolutely key. In order to take them to a new level, you need to bring in players that they look at and go, fuck me, I need to now drag myself to that level. And I think they'll rise to the challenge on that regard. So I think it's very important you now get in the right senior players in that midfield that they can learn off in and around them.
Thank you, Paul Brown. Thank you, Paul Brown, for joining us. Thank you as well. Naughty Paperclip, great name, saying great show. Really appreciate you. Thanks to all the listeners. Please, everybody, smash the like button for us. Does go a very long way in supporting the channel, and feel free to continue to get your comments into the chat, and we'll try to put them on screen. What do you make of Tudor, Colin, being charged with misconduct following his comments that he made after their game against Fulham? Tudor described Fulham's first goal as being allowed as a ridiculous decision and went on to accuse Raul Jimenez of cheating in that incident. What do you make of the fact that he's been charged by the FA? Fair decision, or once again, maybe Spurs being the victim of some sort of conspiracy, it seems like, with referees this season?
Well, I know what Tudor will do with that. He'll completely ignore it because he obviously has been on the "we're not the victims" train. We're going to stand up and be counted and be men. Not to sound too misogynistic, but it's for me, it's just more of the same. I just think it's rubbish. I think it's a bit of maybe a translation issue. I'm sure he doesn't mean cheat, and gain an advantage is probably what he's trying to say. I would hope, because it's clearly not cheating. Everybody's doing it every day of the week. It's unfair, and it's up to the referees to try and spot it. The fact that he got charged is just, we'll keep it family friendly. It's just BS, total and utter BS. I just, some of the decisions made by the controlling bodies in English football just absolutely astonish me from time to time. I think it just forget about it and move on. They can have their money, and Tudor, it's not going to take it won't take one bit of breath out of Tudor.
But what baffles me, right, rather than actually look at the hypocrisy that happened over the two games, which end up leading to this charge and going, right, let's actually sort this out as an issue. You'd rather just brush it under the carpet and charge him for speaking the truth, for questioning it. I mean, they talk about bringing in VAR and everything else to improve the game, but when there's inconsistencies like that and people are flagging it, well, then don't be quick to charge them. You want to improve the game? Listen to them. We can improve the game. But they don't want to do that. It's just brush it under the carpet. You're fine. Let's move on. Absolutely bullshit. It's gone beyond family hour now. It's bullshit.
It's that bad. It can't be family friendly anymore. Yeah, Philip.
The quality of refereeing this season is watching soccer started. Time. It's probably the worst it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened here is referees have abdicated the making of decisions. They're letting VAR make the decisions for them.
Yeah.
And they're missing things that they should be spotting. And VAR isn't picking up. Van Dijk at the weekend. That was a red card and a penalty.
Bullshit decision.
Yeah, it was the week before for us, a red card and a penalty.
Yeah, it's horrendous.
Things get away. Then you've what's that? Howard Webb, is that the guy who's in charge of it?
Might still be,
coming out with these sort of explanation, reasoning what the decision making was like, and all this pure BS, as you say, absolute bullshit. And we've been the recipients of probably some of the worst decisions that there's possibly going to be. We haven't got one penalty this season in the league. I know we got one last night, but that was a foreign referee gave it to us.
Funny enough, there was a VAR check even for it, Philip, which was, I thought, insane.
I saw that. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for the VAR check, But no, I think I'm not going to say there's conspiracy against us, but we've certainly been very unfortunate the way the decisions have bounced against us this season.
The thing that kills me about decisions like that, and I'm not defending Van de Ven's pullback because that's so obvious. That is really it's not really defensible or defendable. The thing that kills me is that it rewards dishonesty and punishes honesty, because Richarlison, as we know, and why we love him, is because he's a big, a full-hearted player who plays with his heart on his sleeve, and he wants to get that shot away, despite the fact that the big lumbering idiot is climbing all over his back. So he gets his shot away, and because that happens, there's no retrospect, right? So if he goes down like a rag doll, of course it is Spurs, so they'll probably give a free out for simulation. But my point is that because he's been honest and tried to stay strong, got his shot away, but he is being fouled, then there's no reason not to give the penalty, even though he's had his shot away. You know what I mean? It just frustrates the living daylights out of me.
This is the thing. They could eradicate diving overnight by actually rewarding players that are trying to be honest, rather than awarding the people that are making the most out of it. Like, it just seems now, no matter where you get tackled over the pitch, if you scream like a banshee, you're getting a free kick, regardless if the referee's actually seen it or not.
I agree.
I think Arsenal must be going to drama school during the week.
Oh, they're the worst.
I mean, to be fair as well, I do remember that funny interview that Mikel Arteta had a couple of years ago, maybe even more than a couple of years ago, when he, said it's a disgrace, and used, the decisions and that, it's embarrassing. I think he said as well, I'm, forgetting maybe some of the exact words he said, but they were pretty strong. I think when he was complaining about that loss to Newcastle, I believe it was a few years ago, I do remember the fact that he did escape actually any punishment from the FA. And for Igor Tudor to, more or less, I think, use similar strong words, and then he's punished. I wonder, not saying again it's a conspiracy or anything, but maybe to Philip's point that it just seems like we're not getting any luck whatsoever. In fact, it just seems like any time that Spurs do make any gesture towards maybe things going against us this season, we seem to not be listened to or heard out. We're in fact punished for even piping up or even trying to defend ourselves, which is ridiculous. And also as well, like sometimes when I see Arteta complaining to the assistant referees at times on the pitch, I'm just amazed with what he's able to get away with compared to ourselves or maybe previous managers in the past. But yeah, if anybody has any thoughts on the referee decisions, feel free to let it know in the comments. Dropkick your teacher saying counting on youth is equal to a surefire way of getting relegated. As always, Dave, he doesn't want to read into any sort of positivity whatsoever. Artist T, do you agree, disagree with him?
In general, sometimes that inexperience can really cost you on the pitch. I think we've seen that with Matisse last night. I think more experienced players squares that, and all of a sudden it's a different game, different pressure, different environment. And I think Archie Gray, again, that one of their goals he could have pulled down in midfield, didn't. I think there are the little bits that maybe cost you in little at times. But, I think where you are, where we are, if other players don't want to pull the weight, then I have no problem going with you. I'd rather see a team that's given everything on the pitch, even if the quality isn't there or isn't good enough, than players that are supposed to be quality that just don't want to show up because they don't have the desire and the hunger, and the money's made them far too comfortable and they know that they can take the easy way out. So I agree and disagree.
Yeah. I can't think of any teams that have survived relegation like us that were full of youngsters, but we needed somebody to show up.
Youngsters.
No, we need somebody to show up.
Kids.
It's nice to see some players playing well. It's nice to see some guys, showing that leadership, that accountability, the grit that we need in order to survive relegation, because there was a period there, Artist T, where no one was showing anything for us to be positive about on the pitch or in the dressing room. So at least we have somebody.
What I will say is as well, you hear the likes with Wayne Rooney and, players like that have come through in the past. Sometimes bringing a youngster into a dressing room can just shake it up a little bit, can liven it up a little bit, with their youthfulness, their enthusiasm and stuff like that. Sometimes they can have a good impact on the dressing room.
Sometimes they want to prove something, they want to show that they're good enough at this level. They want to try to maybe they're hungry, right? And often the experienced players can be maybe a little bit reluctant to have that same enthusiasm because, they're already well-established players. Let's go on to what sort of lineup we want to be seeing, let's say, against Sunday, because let's be honest, Philip, it's a tough decision for Igor Tudor. He has certain players playing pretty well, maybe other ones not so much. We've seen that he's been starting to prefer the 4-4-2 of late. Let's start first with the back line. Kevin Danso was well praised for his performance against Liverpool. Does that mean that he's a must start for you would that mean then dropping someone like a Romero or a Van de Ven from the team? Who's kind of your back line, would you say, for the next game?
I'd kind of go, okay, presumably go to a back four, not a back five. I would probably go with Porro right back, Danso and Romero, and put Mickey Van de Ven at left back.
Okay, yeah.
You know, it solves a problem. And Dragusin does not deserve to be playing at the moment. He's not playing well. Kevin Danso is one of the leaders in the team. What I can see, he seems to be, you know, he mightn't be an official leadership group, but he's certainly a winner, and he likes to, you know, encourage the younger players. I'd have him in there all day long. And Romero, I think you have to have him in. Okay, he might get the rush of blood to the head. He might get sent off, but I think you've got it for the game like this. You want him in the trenches. You really do. And obviously, Vicario in goal. I think he redeemed himself slightly with that fantastic save last night from a deflection. I mean, that was defied gravity. That the way he got up to that one, you know. So that's my back four anyway.
No, I don't think you'd be far off with that, because Dragusin more or less was playing as like an extra center back or as a right back positionally, but he didn't really venture forward at all. But then on the left side, we saw Spence being given more of a license to go forward, and then eventually Destiny Udogie when he came in for him. But it seemed to be the case that they sort of were playing three center backs, but still in a version of a back four type of shape, really. So it wouldn't be that far off to suggest that maybe then it's just the opposite, where Van de Ven is playing more or less as an extra center back, and then maybe Porro is then dropped backwards to be
just
more
any
as the
other
right
defender,
back that goes forward.
Any other defender, bar Radu Dragusin, he doesn't have the nuts for a big game like that against Forest on the weekend. You know, he just looks shaky every time he plays. You know, even when he goes to kick the ball, he looks really awkward. And for me, in a big game like that, I think anybody but him.
Yeah, he's starting to strike me as an all gear but no idea type of player, especially with the man bun. Colin, I mean, is there a preferred back four that you would have? Do you agree with what Philip's gone for? What have you made of also the fact that it has been 4-4-2 kind of shape for the last couple of games or so?
Well, I kind of like it. Obviously, it offers a lot of solidity, and the players are comfortable in it. I'm totally sold on Philip's back four. I wouldn't change that. Dragusin, I agree with, shouldn't be in the team. Certainly not to start. Although, was it against Liverpool that he blocked twice at the very end?
Yeah.
And I had screamed my lungs out at him for the whole match about how useless he was, and then he made a game-saving block. But yeah, it has to be. You have to find a way, I think, to get Danso on the pitch. He's up for it.
Yeah.
And obviously the class of Romero and Van de Ven, you have to have that too. So yeah, I'm all for that back four. I really am.
I think as well in the next game, the reason why I just can't take Radu Dragusin if we can avoid it is because even in that game versus Atletico, when they had that breakaway, there's just times when I feel like Radu Dragusin is doing this, I called it social distance defending, basically, where he just isn't getting close at all to a player, but he's also not closing down any options or any angles for the forward that's coming at him. He let the pass come inside from Ademola Lookman that led to the goal for Julian Alvarez, but then he also didn't really show Lookman down the side for him to be forced into taking a shot. Just sort of let Lookman go wherever he wanted, to be honest, and never at any point seemed to have any desire to get close to him or make a challenge or make Lookman make a decision, really. Just sort of let him do what he wanted. And it's one of the most frustrating things, you know, as a fan to watch, is when defender just jockeys and jockeys and jockeys and jockeys and then never at any point looks to step out and try to force them down the side or put in a challenge. Really, it's so frustrating.
It's because he's not
COVID defending. Don't give it.
Seriously.
Well, the reason why he does
trademark that.
The reason why he does that, and it was the same as Eric Dyer, is because they don't back themselves in 1v1 situations to be able to close them down.
They're too big.
You look at Danso, he'll go out and engage. Romero will go out and engage, and so will Mickey Van de Ven. Radu doesn't. He drops off. And you even look at that yesterday when he was dropping back. At one stage, he looked across looking for help. You know what I mean? And as soon as I seen that, I was like, we're in big trouble here. He's just going to keep dropping off because he doesn't back himself. When you're at this level, you can't carry centre backs like that. You just can't.
I think his agent's been trying to manufacture a move out of Tottenham since he landed. So I think maybe now is the time to get him.
He landed.
Wish, you know.
He's manufacturing a move back to Romania by the looks of things with how he's been playing. Faz Radfar saying, I can see Gray as our future captain. Agree. He's very mature. Colin, Philip, would you make him a future captain at some stage, if not next season?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe not yet, but yeah, certainly. He's,
definitely.
For a young lad, like, he shows incredible maturity, which will only get better as years go on. So, yeah, he's a future captain, maybe a couple of years' time, 2 or 3 years' time.
The one asterisk I'd have beside his name is he looks like a very shy, timid sort of person, in his shell a little bit, in terms of, doesn't seem like a loud sort of a brash character. I don't think he's a guy that will, bollock people. And I do look for that in a captain. I think you've got to have that as a captain. I think you have to have that in your locker to be able to pull people out and stuff like that. And I think that's the only asterisk I'd have beside his name. But he is young and he has plenty of time to grow into that and become a bit more confident to be able to do that, for sure.
It's hard to think of young players.
2 minutes away from extra time, lads.
Good to know.
Should be good.
Hard to think of young players that really do have that voice in the dressing room, that are able to kind of tell other players what to do or where they need to be, what they need to be doing better. I mean, I guess you have to be at a top level and already having maybe achieved a lot in the game in order to really have that voice. Like, the only guy I can think of, and maybe because he rates himself very, very highly, would be like a Holland or someone that's able to like sort of just carry himself however he wants, but that's
he just knows no one's going to say anything to him. He'll just beat them up, you know what I mean?
Well, he was also just a sensation at such a young age, and maybe that's what it needs to be. Gray, though, like maybe Colin was saying, like Philip was saying, a few more years though at the club, becomes one of the more experienced players at the club, a guy that's been there through lots of different difficult as well as good times, then he could probably develop that voice, you would say. But
I do think he leads. He does lead by example. I agree with Dave that he doesn't look like the guy that's going to be in there shouting and roaring, but I don't think he doesn't shirk a tackle, and he defends his teammates, and he has a bit of a temperament on the pitch, so he might be one of those ones that simply leads by example. Yeah,
100%.
I do get what you're saying on that, but I think as a captain, it's very important to be able to pull people on the football pitch in the moment, because when you don't do that, that's why we see mistakes after mistakes and things continue to happen. Great captains, great leaders are not afraid to drag more out of people, and I think that's very, very important. I think we had Son who led by example on the football pitch. We had Kane who led by example. It's not enough as a captain. Sometimes when things were going wrong, they didn't step up vocally on the pitch to arrest things and sort of really help drag the team over the line. Sometimes they shrunk with it. I think, we're a great captain, like a Roy Keane, for example, will call out stuff, and I think you definitely need that. I think that gets the best out of everybody on the pitch.
Yeah, I agree with most of that, but in the environment he's in with Christian Romero stalking the hallways, are you going to say much?
Yeah,
true. Yeah, that's very true.
I'm sure he'll learn.
Good to see Paul Vambin in the house, by the way. Always good to have you, sir, as well as Mary W. Tell worries me, not very pacey. Let's talk about maybe just the rest of the forward line for what we would like to see against Forest. Again, it's difficult decisions. We have to put out the best team possible. Again, we're kind of thinking in the mindset of a 4-4-2 here. Dave, is there any players that you would prefer to see on the left? Keep rolling with Matisse Tell. Would you like to see Chabi being brought back into the team? What would be your front two? Colomwani and Richarlison together? Solanke, if he's fit to play with Richarlison? Any preferences on the front?
Yeah, I think he has to continue to keep Matisse Tell in the team. I think, initially when we get going, a lot of it is off the back of his endeavor in terms of picking up the ball and driving at people. And even if sometimes the end product isn't there, he's winning you throw-ins, he's winning you corners, he's dragging you up the pitch. And then all of a sudden, others grow in confidence off the back of it. So I think you have to keep him in the lineup. I would also argue, I think you've got to bring Richarlison back in this weekend. I think, when you talk about people that are up for a scrap, up for a fight, which we're going to need to show in this game, as well as try and play a bit of football, I think Richarlison will give you that. He's never said I attitude. One thing you can question his quality, but one thing you can never question is if that guy gives every ounce he's got in his body on the football pitch. And I think we're going to need a lot of that on Sunday. Plus, I would argue, for some reason, he does seem to find himself more chances than Solanke or Colomwani, and sometimes put together. Now whether he has the quality to take them or not is another story, but he tends to fashion out more chances for some reason. And I think to be honest with you, I think you've got to play Colin Moani as well. Go and assist in the Liverpool game. By the way, I don't think he gets enough credit for that. You're a player that hasn't scored largely all season. You've got a World Cup coming. Usually you see so many people be selfish in that moment to take the shot themselves. He managed to have the cool, calm, collective nature to be able to lay it off. And he done something earlier on in the season against Sparta. Was it Sparta Prague? The same thing. And he scored then again. He scored in the North London Derby. Scored a massive goal there last night. So for me, I think you've got to include him. The debate then would be Xavi Simons or Paulinho in coming into that midfield. Xavi had a very good game last night, but he did also get absolutely bullied off the ball for their goal straight after halftime. And in a game where you have to show a fight, I think he'd actually be more suited coming off the bench. Because I think in this game, we are going to have to earn the right to play. And I think that sort of brings Paulinho back into the fold with Xavi dropping to the bench and coming on later on in the game. I think where there's more time and space for him to be able to have an impact on the game. But one player I don't want to see start is Dom Solanke. He has annoyed me so much over recent weeks. He is refusing to run and offer runs and passes, for players in possession. Often he's either standing there or running towards them and bringing players rather than getting on his heels, running in behind or dragging players with him. Don't get me wrong. If you want to play long ball, he's handy in that regard. But outside of that, he doesn't do an awful lot of running recently. So for me, I don't think he deserves to start in this game.
If we're going to stick with a 4-4-2, though, Dave, if you brought Paulinho in, doesn't that mean then you would be dropping one of Gray or Sarr for this game?
No, I'd go 4-3-3.
Go 4-3-3. Okay. Colin, any preference in the forward line for the game against Forest?
I think I was actually trying to figure it out here with a squad builder, and I think 4-3-3 kind of solves it. Even though I really do kind of like 4-2-2 or 4-4-2, I should say.
Just four at the back, whatever way this makeup is after that, I don't mind.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that, the back four of Van de Ven, Danzo, Romero, and Porro, and then I was looking at it thinking I was definitely going to put Paulinho and Gray in the middle and Tell on the left. And then I was struggling to who to put on the right of that four. And I was looking through the squad thinking nobody really fits. So it was 3-4-3-3 kind of solves that. But I had the front two as right. I know you. Sorry, while I was building that, you were talking, so I missed what you said. But I think you were giving out about Solanke not running.
Yeah,
was it Solanke? Yeah. Well, I had stuck in Solanke and Richarlison just because. I'm reconsidering it now with what you've said, but before I took cognizance of what you did say, I had Solanke and Richardson Richarlison, excuse me, for Solanke because of the running, which he's not doing. But I have to say, I didn't notice that, but I'm going to watch it a bit closer now the next time. And Richarlison, I'll try that again, Richarlison, just because he's an almighty pest and he's perfectly capable of scoring a goal. Now that does drop. Moani, but potentially he could start instead of Solanke. So the problem for me was who plays on the right of the midfield forward. I couldn't figure that out, and I'm happy enough for somebody to suggest one.
We'll finish things off with Colin and maybe ask you this one: if Spurs do in fact beat Forest this Sunday, do you think that would be the sign that we're going to survive relegation? Or is that
I think it'd be definitely too soon, because you don't know what's around the corner, and we're just above that line. But it will be a huge step. I mean, a massive step, a genuine 6-pointer, and we'd be doing Leeds a favor as well, my second team. It's a massive step in the right direction. But the context of a win is only. It's only fully recognized if you supplement that with equally good performances and wins, and you gather points. I mean, if we win the Forest game and we win or we lose every other match after it means nothing. So it's important, and equally, it's a massive step forward, but it's not a massive pushback if we lose either. If we lose it and we go on to win the remaining 7 games or whatever it is, then you forget about it. So to me, it's all about what we do after this game, and you hope that between the good patches we've seen, because we played reasonably well against Crystal Palace until Mickey van de Ven did what he did. Other than the slips in the first leg of the Champions League, that was pretty good. They didn't give up. We've played very well against Liverpool. So all the signs of there, played very well in the second leg. We've obviously won that match last night. So there's plenty of positive indicators. So yeah, let's go get 3 points, and it's a massive step forward. But equally, it means nothing unless we follow that up with repeat performances.
Yeah.
Dave, I mean, would you go as far to say that this win against Forest could be the chance of survival?
Look, I already thought we were back last night after that performance, to be honest with you, and stuff like that. But no, look, I think what it would do is I think it would alleviate a lot of the, the questions around, do these players care? Do they have the stomach for the fight
Good
and
point.
stuff like that? Does it guarantee us safety? No, not at all. Where Colin is absolutely spot on. It means nothing if you don't back it up with some of the winnable fixtures we have after that, which I think are very, very important. But I do think it gives us hope, it gives us belief, and most importantly, gives the squad confidence. And that's what you need when you're down there.
Yeah. I think we'll finish.
Well put,
go
Dave.
ahead, Colin.
Sorry, no, well put, Dave. That was a nice articulation.
I think we'll finish up here with some members' questions. I want to try to make the best use of everyone's time tonight. Don't want to go super over the hour mark. So
quick hour.
Quick hour, as always, a little bit of lateness to it, but we'll try our best. Tartan Spurs, man up in Scotland. Thank you for the support as a member, by the way, sir. Saying, serious question, why hasn't Johan Lange been sacked? We all know he should have been sacked even last year. I know there isn't a guarantee which league we will be in next season, but in my opinion, a new technical director needs to be appointed in as soon as possible so they can analyze the first team, the players currently out on loan, and the academy, presuming we will be competing in the Premier League next season. We need to plan now on our summer activity. Which players need to move on? Which players who are currently out on loan could be integrating into the first team? Which players can be brought in to strengthen the first team? I do not trust Johan Lange to do any of these things. If we can integrate players such as Mikey Moore, Vuskovic, Donnelly, and Phillips into the first team, then we can get rid of the dead wood, fill the first team players with players who actually care about the club, and then have money to spend on players who improve the overall quality of the team. Do you guys agree? I guess what he's bringing up here is that you would be doing some summer planning already at this stage of the season. It's not like you just start from scratch, the moment the season is over. You would already be having these conversations. So why on earth is Johan Lange in the job then? If that's the case, it's a valid point.
Yeah. I think he's only there because the place is on fire. There are that many fires to put out, and the threat of relegation. Nobody's, in my opinion, he's been that inept. Simply nobody's got around to doing it yet.
They're going to keep him as a scapegoat, though, as well, aren't they, to a certain degree?
Yeah,
if we end up going down, then they'll sack him and they'll give the reasons why. And they'll use him as another scapegoat, as a barrier between them and the hatred or whatever.
Philip, I know we need to let you go. Sorry, I just saw your message there. Thank you as always, Philip, for taking time out of your evening and being the super sub.
Oh, thank you. No, sorry, we're minding grandkids here in their bedtime, so
the fun never stops.
Almost long, you'd hear them screaming in the background.
No, they were great.
Pleasure as always, lads.
Thank you,
well done, Philip.
Sunday.
Yes, hope for a good result on Sunday. Thank you, Philip. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Please, everybody, do thank Philip Brady in the comments for taking time out of his evening and being the fantastic super sub that he is. Move things on to Iceman saying we've gotten a bit of momentum over the last few games. Can we take this for the remaining games, and do our players stay if we stay up? Let's maybe take the latter part of that. Do you think players like Romero, Van de Ven end up staying, Colin, if we do in fact stay in the Premier League?
Awkward one. With the World Cup year, I don't think much player trading is going to be done prior to it. So it'll be difficult for the board to convince someone like Van de Ven, if he hasn't already made up his mind to go, or Romero, that we've got the wherewithal to do this and take the squad forward. So I think there were signs of it when they tried to sign Morgan Gibbs White and Kudos all kind of in the same breath, which if we had actually pulled that off, imagine how different we'd feel about the transfer window. But unfortunately, you're only as good as your last game or as good as your last transfer window. And our last one, famously, is -11. So it'll be very, very difficult, in my opinion, to convince somebody of significant quality like a Van de Ven or Romero to stay when we really haven't shown them that the board haven't shown them that they're committed to driving the squad and the team forward, because that will have been 2 years now, if assuming we escape relegation, where we've just barely survived the season. So I know I would take some convincing to stick around.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about one of Romero or Van de Ven leaving. I think the club will try their hardest to not let both of them go in one season. But yeah, I do expect one of them maybe to go.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you at something there, Colin?
No, I was just going to say that, it's money where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like they can come down and promise the sun, moon, and stars, and this is what Romero gives out about, because I'm sure, like, when he posts those things on Instagram after every bloody window, he's frustrated because he's probably been sat down and told, "Don't you worry, lad. We've got this. We're going to go after this, and we're going to go after that, and we'll do the other. You'll see what a great squad we're going to have, and it'll be up to your level, and we're as ambitious as you are." And then he's sitting there going, "What's happened?" And because he can't, he has zero filter. It just comes out. It just comes out in a post. And so I think they'll have all heard this before. And if your mind is made up to go, I think you'll be going.
Yeah. It could be an Isaac situation, unfortunately. Dropkick your teacher saying, genuinely sorry for how long the question is. Looking at our quality, would you rather be in a game where you can hold out for the draw, or would you rather be in a game where you think we can go out and get a win? On a podcast, Nita Manuha points out that, say, if you go 1-0 down, a skillful defense will keep it at 1-0, while a team that stays up or is progressive will go and get the win. But a lot of time, you'll get nothing in at all. While we, of course, have slightly more quality than Forest, do you think it's fair to say both of our biggest issues are chipping in goals and finding the back of the net? I mean, there's something that Colin has said, or I think it might have been Philip. Believe it was you, Colin, right? That right now Spurs are starting to score goals again. But the defense hasn't been that much more solid. And he's saying, do you think Van de Ven's recent comments are another example of how the players resent us and think that or resent us and think that we're stupid because of what he said last week in his recent performances don't seem to add up like this? That's a separate question. But yeah, Colin, just on the fact that we're still chipping in goals.
Yeah, I think it's well, I think you have to go for it. Is my opinion. I think our squad has always been better when it's running forward rather than running backwards. But I think Tudor has now resolved the connectivity, either through fitness or either through playing players in positions where they're comfortable, where the link play between the midfield and the attack is better, and we are creating chances and we are scoring goals. But for me, it's worrying, Liverpool aside, and the anomalies against Atletico Madrid in the first leg aside, I still think we look vulnerable. I think we have looked better, but I still think we look vulnerable, and so we can be got at. So I would be. I don't think our biggest issue is finding the back of the net anymore. I think our biggest issue is shipping goals.
Yeah, and it's probably up to then a Danzo, Romero, and a Van de Ven to find a way to start making things more solid. And of course, Vicario, who we know has been source of controversy recently. Maybe Dave, you take a Van de Ven question here. Do you think he resents us and thinks we're stupid, says Artist T, for his comments about the, whether there's a person in the dressing room that is, reluctant or doesn't seem to care, right? I guess about us being relegated because they know they're going to leave.
Where do you start?
It's a bit of a difficult one because it's hard to say that does he resent us. It's sort of, he did offer a fan out for a fight. It's hard to forget that. So there is an element where I think there is definitely a bit of maybe anger towards Spurs fans. I'm not going to say he hates us. He hasn't come out and said that, but maybe there's a bit of anger and frustration towards us. I think that's for sure. But I also think, he's not the only one that's come out and rubbished reports this season. Richarlison has done it at times. I think I actually believe Chris Cowland posted something. Richarlison posted something that was put out there by the media. Richarlison went straight in under and sort of rubbished the reports, So, and you know what? More power to these players. I'd rather them come out and let us know what is true and what isn't true, rather than let people print shit off left, right, and centre. It's what's leading to all these ITKs everywhere, and a lot of the stuff never ever happens.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the Van de Ven situation. To be perfectly honest, Steve, because I think any player, even if it were true that he said this or something around the dressing room, they're always going to deny it. It would be insane if they admitted to doing something like that, because I think they would get absolutely canned for it. But maybe if it is true, which I've been led to believe it actually might be, that he is the one to have maybe said that he doesn't care as much about getting relegated because he knows he could be out the door. Incredible acting, from Van de Ven, and the passion that he showed in the press conference, because he seemed to vehemently, say that it was nonsense and all these types of words. So maybe he has a future not only as a center back, but also as an actor. Mr. Mickey. Thank you, Colin, for taking the time once again out of your evening. I'm glad that we were able to have you after 2 good performances, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, finally.
And
finally,
it's been a while. But of course, poor Jack, because now he's missed, the
don't
1
worry,
week
he's
where,
on the sauce.
He's the bad luck now.
Yeah. But thank you, Colin. As always, appreciate your
pleasure
contribution. And we will wrap things up there. Everybody, please, as always, smash the like button on the way out. Do join us tomorrow for any of the stuff that we put out there if we have time for a member stream, and also we're making a predicted lineup. And then also, of course, the Sunday. Clear your schedules if you can. If you're not too busy, we have a massive one this Sunday. We'd love to have you there with us for it. Smash the like button, please, like I've said. See you next time, everybody. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. See you all soon.